Oh, okay. Let's see. I thought I did that already. Okay. How's that? Okay. All righty. So the first question is from Harinam Das from the East Coast. Let's see. Let me get my notes here. And Harinam asks, the Vedas are extensive. Why do we not follow all aspects of the Vedas? How did it come to be that we chose to worship Krishna? I had a friend recently ask me all this. He wondered why, if the book is our philosophy, I mean, probably referring to the Veda, if the Veda is our philosophy, why not follow all of it? Krishna has so many avatars. How can you explain these? It is confusing. Trying to word things for someone to understand is sometimes hard. If not said right, it might not give the proper understanding. Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Well, as you said in your question, the Vedas are extensive, so there are many branched. And the Bhagavad Purana, the Srimad Bhagavatam, is described as the ripened fruit of the many branched tree of Vedic literature. So a lot of ground is covered there. There's a lot of things to know in this world that can be useful, and also knowledge as a means to transcend the world, and the nature of transcendence, for that matter, is variegated as well. So given the variety of things to know, places to go, and so forth, and the Vedas are extensive, and they cover the path of karma, the path of gyan, the path of bhakti. And these are really universal principles. Karma meaning that people tend to work for the fruits of their activity, to avoid suffering and pursue happiness, and primarily through acquisition of things. And so that's not a sectarian kind of a provincial perspective, the karma marg. That's what most people do. And to make it a path systematically, well, the thought is that one should pursue such things in consideration of God. So the karma marg, how to acquire. Gyan marg, how to give up the things, and realize that they're not all that they're made out to be, and they don't endure. And to know oneself, but thereby to be bigger than all the things put together, qualitatively different than all the things of the material world. So to let go of them, and then the path of bhakti, to dedicate oneself to the he who knows everything, he who owns everything, and be in a good position by being his friend. If you're the friend of one who knows everything and owns everything, then you don't have to worry about owning anything, about knowing anything. It's all at your disposal through your relationship with the owner and knower of everything. So these are the basic paths, and people of this world will be inclined towards one or another at different times and different lifetimes. And so the Veda addresses all of them. Not everybody is ready to hear about Krishna Loka and unalloyed bhakti and the dispensation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and so forth. So, and as I say, transcendence is variegated as well. So we may pursue it through Gyan or Bhakti and get a slightly different result. So again, in your question, you said the Vedas are extensive. Yeah, precisely. They are extensive. Now, what we are doing is following the yuga, if you want to follow according to the Veda and Purana, the yuga avatar, who for the Kali Yuga gives the recommended path. So there are different yugas. So the Vedas address the different yugas and the different paths that are more fruitful, efficacious in those yugas. So we're in the Kali Yuga. The most efficacious path is the chanting of the holy name. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fits the description of the Yuga avatar who will distribute the chanting of the holy name. Yagnaya Sankirtana Prayer Jatihi Sumedasa Krishna Varnam Tisa Krishnam Sangho Pangasta Parshadam. And so, given that it's Kali Yuga, we're following the Yuga avatar and thereby the Yuga Dharma. Then those associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with whom he appeared, they have kind of stirred the pot, if you will, and focused the pot of revelation and focused our attention on that which is central to Kali Yuga and the prospect that has been offered to us given the descent, the avataric, if you will, appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, and in doing that, we find that the focus has been placed on Srimad Bhagavatam of all the Vedic texts, because it is thought to be that which the legendary Vyas wrote in his most mature stage of realization, as the text itself explains, and as other Puranas also attest to. So we kind of cut to the chase in Kali Yuga. Time is short, and we go to the Bhagavatam, and there we find the ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic literature, and it's being offered to us through the approach and personally demonstrated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nam Sankirtan. And so, yeah, and given that we have had saintly association to capture our faith and show us how to tread the path, we focus on that particular path and the texts that are pertinent to that. And we have no interest in the other texts. We're not just here to satisfy our curiosity. As I say, time is short. So we're focused on the particular texts that are relevant to our time and circumstance and our tradition. And we suggest others do as well for good reason. I hope that helps.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the next question is from Gayatri David.
I should say one other thing, and that means that so we as sadhakas should understand this point. It's a simple point that I've explained, and many of you have probably already understood that. But to focus your attention on the answer, it's important to note that what I said, and therefore not every book that somebody quotes, some Purana or some Itihasa or some Samhita over here as evidence for how we should conduct ourselves, applies to us. I see this tendency amongst devotees. Anything that was written a long time ago in Sanskrit or Bengali now suddenly becomes authoritative. It's not authoritative necessarily for our particular path. Let me give you an example. There's a statement from the Krishna Yamala that Rupa Goswami cites in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatriki Virimbina Aikantiki Haraya Bhakti Utpatyaiva Kalpate. It says that Shruti Smriti Puranadi. The Shruti means the Veda, the Upanishads, the Smriti, the Puranas, Shruti Smriti Puranadi, Pancharatriki Virimbina, the Pancharatric literature, all the tantric texts and so forth. Shruti Smriti Puranadi, Pancharatriki Virimbina, Aikantiki Harer Bhakti Upadhyaya Kalpate. That bhakti that is contrary to these texts is a disturbance to the society. So someone may, I've seen this happen, devotee may quote the verse and say, therefore, see, we have to follow the Smriti, the Manusmriti, which tells us is really the karma marg. It's all about varnashram, or this Purana or that one and so on and so forth. But the verse itself, as cited by Rupa Goswami, pertains to those who reject the Vedic literature, the Buddhists, and in some instances express what looks like bhakti. So there are Buddhist sects that worship, for example, I think Amitabha Buddha or something. They want to go to the Buddha Loka, and there everybody's in the penultimate stage of attaining nirvana, and from that place it's easy to attain nirvana. And if you study their texts and so forth, they sound like they're right out of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Just chant the name of the Buddha. Doesn't matter if your eyes are closed or you're asleep. His name is sacred, and worship him, and so on and so forth. So it looks like here's bhakti here, but according to the verse, because the Buddhists reject the revelation, the scripture, then that verse has been cited by Rupa Goswami to say, well, that kind of bhakti is actually disturbance to those who actually want to practice bhakti. Now that's how it's used. Now Jiva Goswami, to take it a step further, comments that this does not mean that those who are on the path of bhakti are obliged to follow everything in every smriti, every shruti, every Purana, and so forth. No, is for the devotees, it means relevant to the path that you're on, the bhakti path of Uttama Bhakti given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Rupa Goswami. You should follow the scriptures that pertain to that. There are other scriptures that pertain, as I said earlier, to other paths, like the Varnashram path. That we're not on that path. There may be some places where the two, run in parallel and so forth, but they're different paths. So everything that pertains to Varnashram doesn't pertain to those on the path of Uttama Bhakti. And to think that our bhakti depends on following such injunctions is to have your bhakti covered by karma, which Rupa Goswami says that's not the path we're on. Gyan karmadi and avritam. Our bhakti should not be covered by gyan or karma, or the thinking that by accepting varnashram, my position in bhakti will be enhanced, or by foregoing a varnashram obligation, of which there are many, my bhakti will be negatively affected. To think like that and conduct oneself like that is to have one's bhakti covered by karma. Or to think that you can enhance your bhakti by gyan and vairagya as a means, this would be to have your bhakti covered by gyan. Rupa Goswami says gyan and vairagya, which are angas of the path of gyan, are not angas of the path of bhakti. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita. Janayati Ashu Vairagyam Gyanam Chara Hoitakam. Rather than being angas or part of the way, they are a result of bhakti. So Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita, bhakti to Vasudev, Janayati Ashu Vairagyam. Ashu Vairagyam Gyanam Cha Yata Hoitakam. Very quickly on the path of bhakti, detachment and knowledge show up as a result. Whereas in the Gyan Marg, they are the way. You have to practice vairagya. You have to run off to the Himalayas and try to scale the highest frozen peaks and live in a cave. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come and, like a volcano, erupted, melted those snow peaks, right? Flattened the mountains, turned climbing into dancing, turned meditative silence into song. In the flatlands of Navadvipa, the Ganges has come like the Mahaprabhu was teaching from the cave of Vyas, right? Hidden away where he wrote the Bhagavatam, has flowed down like the Ganga to the Bay of Bengal, right? To the flatland there. And it's been made available and easy for everyone to sing and chant and so forth. So anyway, getting a little carried away. Wrote some of these things in my commentary that I mentioned earlier. So anyway, the point is we don't want our bhakti covered by karma nor by gyan, right? And so we are going to follow the bhakti shastras. We have our own shastras. We follow Bhagavatam, of course, Bhagavad Gita, of course, and there may be some other sattvic Puranas that we include that are useful and helpful to us. And then we have our own canon, if you will, scriptural canon, the books of the Goswamis. As Sri Navadvipa said, Nana Shastra Vichara Naika Nipuno Sadharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakaruno Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanya Karo. For the benefit of all the people of the world. Hitakaruno, out of compassion, these Goswamis, Rup Sanatan, Jiva Goswami, Raghunath Das, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, they churned these bhaktis, the sacred text, and extracted from them the very essence about bhakti. And then they wrote what we sometimes refer to as the Bhakti Shastras, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Brihat Bhagavatamrita, and so on and so forth. So these are our books, our Hari Bhakti Vilas, which from our own Sangha, His Grace Prabhupada is now coming out soon with a publication, definitive English edition of the part 1, Hari Bhakti Vilas. So this is the Smriti text for us. We don't need Manusmriti or so forth, so on. So not everything that's written a long time ago in Sanskrit is Shastra for us, or in Bengali. It may be something's written in English or in Spanish right now, or in Finnish, or Swedish, or Polish is more scripturally pertinent to us. If it's written by a insightful and realized devotee commenting on a text, the commentaries are more important than the texts themselves. So just to emphasize that point. Okay.
Thank you very much. Just a quick question, are you on that cellular data? Because the internet's slightly choppy at times.
I'll get on. I hope if I get off, I'll have to get back on. Hopefully it won't.
I think it should be fine. It'll just maybe freeze for a few seconds.
I have a follow-up on that, Gurudev. That's also, doesn't Krishna say, Krishna tu swayam Bhagavan, just give up all other forms of religion and just follow me? So that's pretty much telling us that we should focus on him.
Hello. I'm back.
Did you hear the follow-up? Bijay had a follow-up question. Bijay, can you repeat it? Because Guru Maharaj was offline.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Krishna, another reason we do it, Krishna says, Krishna tu swayam Bhagavan, follow me, give up all forms of religion. I don't know the actual, just, stop all that nonsense. I'm the one, and, this is it, so.
There you go. Gita Upanishad, right? Very good. That's the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. Give up Varnashram, give up Gyan. It says Sarva Dharman Prityaja. Give up Karma and Gyan is what he's saying. And take bhakti, accept bhakti to me alone. So there you go. The essence of the Vedas, Gita Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita. Thank you.
So the next question is from Gayatri.
Hare Krishna, can you hear me?
Hare Ram.
Namaste, Kumar. So I am wondering, I've gone through an experience recently where I have been in a lot of pain, and it's one thing hearing that we burn karma and we're not given more that we can handle, and we're trying to apply ourselves so that we can remember in times of suffering, we can remember Krishna. But the experience that I had, I guess it's somewhat embarrassing in a way, but all I could think was just like, why? And this is too much. I cannot handle this? And just like, just please make the pain go away, because this, I cannot focus on chanting. I cannot want you. I can barely pray to want you. So like, how can we apply ourselves to, because afterwards, now that I look back at it, I can think realistically, okay, maybe, I'm burning off some karma, whatever it is. But when we're in those situations that just seem so overwhelming, like, how can we apply ourselves? What can we do to be able to remember Krishna in those situations? And then I'm also wondering, because since like we're not this body, because that's the whole thing. When you're in that suffering, you feel that pain. It's like, I'm not this body, yeah, but I'm experiencing a lot of pain still. And if we're not this body and we're not this mind, this is kind of like a second question, I guess, but can we say that we are to some extent the way we treat others? So that's like not related, but it's on the topic of body.
Are we the way that we treat others?
Yeah. So like, yeah, I don't know how else to phrase that. There was just something that I was wondering if,
do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But to answer your question broadly, I think that that pain or suffering, let's call it suffering, is a result of material attachment. It exists in the mind. It doesn't exist in the body. It only exists in the mind, because if you didn't have a mind connected to your body, then your body wouldn't feel any pain, right? So it's in the mind. And the mind is, as Arjuna has told us in Bhagavad Gita, it's difficult to control. He compared it to trying to capture the wind. Formidable task, right? And so there are going to be times when there's a virtual hurricane or a tornado of circumstances that make it difficult to control the mind. Look at the circumstances that Arjuna himself found himself in. He was in the middle of a huge war and so on and so forth. It's a given that in the early stages of our practice, before we attain nishta, that our bhajan, our practice, our remembrance of Krishna, our ability to chant, is going to be unsteady. It's unsteady because we have anarthas coming from our attachments, which cause these, type of circumstances, emotional pain, suffering, and so on and so forth. And we can understand it theoretically that it's the result of, if I wasn't attached to this person who did this, who acted like this when I thought she was like that, and now it's affecting me so much. My daughter did this, how could she do that? If I wasn't attached, well, I wouldn't feel it. You can express it to your friends, and they go, "Oh yeah," they try to be empathetic, but they just go home and don't think about it again, because they're not attached. So we can source it out. I think we can very logically understand that if I was not attached, I would not be feeling like this. So the wisdom there of the Gita, where Krishna says that suffering is born from the womb of attachment. This is the wisdom of the Buddha also, right? He thought that let's just focus on what's really happening here. We're all suffering. And what's the cause? Well,
Pretty much
it means
it broke off. Could you repeat from what you said? What's the cause of suffering?
What's the cause of suffering? Oh, it's attachment. And I was saying in the Gita, did you hear that part?
No.
In the Gita, Krishna says that suffering is born from the womb of attachment. So this is a very practical, logical, something that we can experience. Because if we weren't, we can see that somebody else is not attached to the fact, to my car, but my car is now totaled. And so it's a whole problem for me, and because I'm attached to it and the implications of it, what I wanted to get out of it. I wanted to be able to go to work with it. I wanted to drive my kids to the soccer game, or whatever it is. Now it's gone. You can tell your friend about it and they on you because of your attachment. So there's any number of ways we can sort this out and come to that conclusion. As I say, this was the wisdom of the Buddha. He concluded that what's happening here is that we're all suffering. And the solution and the cause of it is our thirst. Trishna means thirst, the thirst for things. The thirst for things. And if you get the things, well, then you have to worry that they're going to be gone, or they will be gone, even if you don't worry about it, and then you'll be left suffering because of your attachment. So all this attachment is just suffering. It's just going on in your head, and the cause is attachment. So you can't really get away from this. This is very sound, reasonable. It's not some esoteric idea that Krishna has a planet, it's over there, and you're going to get there, and it's going to be like this. And it's very down to earth, practical, and so we. Can you hear me?
It was breaking up again. You said it's down to earth. If you could continue from there.
Yeah, it's down to earth. It's practical. It's not some esoteric thing like Krishna Lila that you can't see. It's right in front of you. And we have to embrace these kind of foundational grounding features of our tradition, which correspond cross-culturally with other great spiritual traditions. Like here I'm citing the Buddha also, right? This is the kind of basic 101 wisdom of genuine spiritual pursuit. And we have to be grounded in these things so that when we find ourselves in times like you're describing, like I can't Krishna, I can't, why?
Ramesh, are you there?
Yeah, lost me again, huh?
You're definitely on the cellular side.
Yeah. Oh, no,
weird.
it went off the cellular thing.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Should I try to get back on it?
I think so. Yeah, it's very bad now.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I was saying is that, that we get into, we're not problem, we have attachments. Oh, you hear me now?
I think you better start from the beginning.
Okay, well, we find ourselves in these type of overwhelming situations emotionally. Our attachments get in the way and so forth. And then we why does this happen? Why it's so bad? I can't even chant. I can't even practice. And you start to think, maybe this isn't, working. Maybe this isn't real. But we have to gravitate towards these foundational kind of principles to understand what's happening. It makes sense. I have attachments, therefore, and now that's showing up in the form of suffering because of my attachments. I can't even give them up, so I'm going to have to bear the suffering, at least for now. But I can understand it. I get clarity, and I don't have doubts in the path. And if I think like that, and I get grounded in that, then I can get strength in those circumstances to apply myself in the practices of chanting. Even though it's difficult, my mind is somewhere else, I bring myself into and back into my practice by kind of standing on the ground of these kind of principles, which I say like our 101 spiritual life. I'm not the body. Suffering comes from attachment. these things, you can experience it. You can the reason that's why the Buddha was very pragmatic. Like, let's just get to the, everybody's suffering. Okay, we all agree. Okay, now let me explain to you. Here's why. Okay, we got it. That's it. Two things. It's all over. Now now to give it up. Okay, well, how to do that? He had 8 steps. Whatever. So we have ours and whatnot, and our trajectory is a little different than the Buddha's, but that's what I would recommend. You have to gravitate towards the lower end of the philosophy, the ground of it all, and think, well, I'm having all this trouble. Do I suddenly think that must mean I'm this body actually, and there's no meaning to life, and there's no God, or there's some other God? No, those are not very good. That's not very good reasoning. So I hope that helps. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kumar.
Okay.
Next question is from Kanaram.
Yes.
Good morning, Guru Maharaj.
Morning.
I think my question is kind of like a psychological question, or like maybe something in the way that devotees may feel like a little bit neurotic. And I'm not really like thinking about this like for myself right now, but I have in the past, and I've seen some people talking about it like on social media. So like my question is like, so what do we think for ourselves, or what do we say to like those people who are philosophically inclined, who like ask about the nature of our practice as like a something that requires constant self-improvement? And so I might ask myself, like, am I a constant self-improvement project, or do I always need to feel like I'm improving or fixing myself in order to like feel valuable? Or do I have value right now as I am? Is there anything like about me that's good enough as I am, kind of thing?
I think I understand what you're saying. So some people might fault the path by looking at it like that.
Mm-hmm.
You have a psychological neurosis in which you think you always have to improve yourself in order to be worthy, to be of value. But the healthy psychological perspective is you are a unit of value. You are valuable as you are, even with your defects, right? And therefore you should give up Krishna consciousness, because it's just some psychological neurosis in which you're constantly trying to improve yourself. And well, first of all, you have to differentiate between a psychological worldview and a spiritual worldview. There are places where the two come together and are important, and there are places where they depart as well. So you cannot apply everything from a psychological worldview to do away with a spiritual worldview, or to apply it to someone on a spiritual platform. We're trying to improve ourselves spiritually. We're trying to, become enlightened, to attain love of God. Now, when we say that we're trying to attain love of God, what we're also saying is we're trying to attain all that we can be. We're trying to uncover ourselves. We're a part and parcel of God. We're trying to uncover our relationship. It's been covered over. So we're not trying to improve ourselves. We're trying to find ourselves. Right? We're trying to uncover ourselves, rather than it's not something to be improved. It's a unit of Satchidananda. Right? So we're trying to uncover it, and our sense of the self is different than the sense of self in a psychological worldview, and we can be fully active in trying to uncover ourselves, become self-realized, to become God-realized. We can be fully active in that, and and not be violating, if you will, this psychological principle of constantly trying neurotically to improve yourself materially. That is valuable to a point, but it can become a neurosis. And we do have to accept our shortcomings psychologically, physically, and so forth. And it's built into our teaching that it's almost an oxymoron to say, material improvement, because as much as you could become fully materially improved, there's no real improvement. It all washes out, right, at death. So there's a I think we're more in a middle road here, and that we do include the effort in a balanced way.
It cut off for quite a while. You were saying that it's built into our scriptures or something like that.
Well, it's built into our perspective that there's room for improving ourselves materially on a psychological level. So we will embrace that idea. We agree with the idea. There is a kind of neurosis that people get into in trying to constantly improve themselves and thinking they have to improve themselves in so many ways in order to be worthwhile. We disagree with that. We agree that's a neurosis. We don't teach that we should be doing that. And we don't equate our effort to uncover ourselves, so to speak, and to love God with that type of neurosis. We do see that there is room for improving ourselves materially, say psychologically or physically, exercising, and with some balance, we will be engaged in such, with ultimately a view to employ that which we gain from it in our own spiritual practice. So we agree with the principle. We can hardly be guilty of it if we are conducting ourselves properly in terms of sadhana, because again, there's two different worldviews of what the self is to begin with, and we don't. And with regard to also, I would say with regard to our status within bhakti, we emphasize that we should understand our adhikar, the level of our eligibility, and apply ourselves accordingly. That means that's the idea there is to bring balance and not feel that because I'm on this level instead of this higher level, there's something wrong with me and it's a problem. No, if you apply yourself on the level that you're at, then you'll naturally go to another level. Rather than trying to go to another level, apply yourself appropriately to the practices that you can incorporate given your adhikar. Even in Varnashram, you have your Brahmins, your Vaishyas, your Kshatriyas, and your Sudras, and if each of them applies themselves according to the dharma of those castes, that's sattvic. The Gita tells us, the Sudra should not try to do the work of a Brahmin, thinking that there's some fault in his endeavor. There's fault in every endeavor in the material world, in all the statuses. So I'm talking about it in a broad way, but I think that it's important to go back to the beginning of what I said. You cannot apply the teachings of a psychological worldview entirely to someone who has a spiritual worldview, and say that because you want to become enlightened, therefore you got a psychological neurosis. No. that help?
Yeah, it's good. It's good to see that there are like two ideologies that are sort of being conflated there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And you say, you should be kind to yourself. You should love yourself. Well, we say the same thing, but we just have a different idea what the self is, right? And we're not here to beat ourselves up. In a healthy way, we may have some regret. There's a place for that, some lamentation. The lamentation of great spiritual teachers that we find in their songs is something. This is a whole different. This is not a neurosis, right? This is an ideal. So, but it would be hard to communicate these things to people who living in a psychological worldview. Therefore, you have to turn the psychological worldview on its head. What's the problem with the psychological worldview? Everything's seen through a psychological lens entirely. Where does that end up with? What does that make of you? Yeah. I heard you more or less. Yeah. Okay. So what else?
There's a follow-up question from Krishna Kanaya Didi to your previous answer. She says, because you mentioned that, the Buddhists have their path of the eightfold path and we have ours. She says, aren't we as Vaishnavas aspirants in a way not also following the eightfold path? Right view, right resolve, right speech, right conduct, right livelihood, right mindfulness, and right samadhi.
Yeah, sure. You could say that, but obviously there's more to our path than that, and our right samadhi is a little Buddha's. But yeah, and that if you look at Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's path, then you can make a good argument for the fact or the idea that which is our aspects of other paths it's rather inclusive, are included in it, and as a result, the results of those paths are included in it. So the results of varnashram is included and more. The results of gyan is included and more in bhakti and so forth. Buddha is an incarnation of Vishnu, so there you go. Buddha is included in Vishnu, and Vishnu is included in Krishna. So all good.
Could there be another way of looking at it also, that there's a Vaishnava version of these eightfold things, like right speech is harikatha and right effort is, harinam or whatever like that?
Right.
Okay, so the next question is from Krishna Sevaka.
Haribol. Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Please accept my obeisances. You can hear me now then?
No.
Oh, okay.
You have to unmute the audio.
I did that. Let's see.
I can hear you, but for some reason Maharaj can't.
Shall I type it in then?
You can tell it to me and I can ask it.
Okay. I've been reading his Circle of Friends book and regarding Balaram. And in the apricot Leela, he performs all kinds of variegated expressions of different rasas, leaving Vraj, marrying in Aishvarya, marrying the Naga gopis, coming back to Vraj. And so my question is, how is he different in the apricot Leela than the prakat Leela, where all these things seem to be going on in the service of Krishna, asking him to do all these things, and how that relates to us in our relationship and understanding and expanding our relationship Does that make any sense?
It's going to be a little hard for me to formulate that question. If you go, you see at the bottom bar there, it says English or interpretation. Do you see that kind of like a gray thing at the bottom?
No. I'll type it in.
Okay. So let's.
And then you can go to the next one.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, the next question is from Brighton, from Amrit Gopal.
I'm ready. Hare Krishna.
Can't hear you.
Oh, no.
That was my fault. I didn't go back on English.
Hare
Sorry.
Krishna Maharaj, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
To see you, Hare Krishna. I'm so excited to hear your commentary on Navadvipashtakam. Is it Rupa Goswami's Navadvipashtakam?
Well, some people say it is. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. So on that topic, in the second verse, there is some question as to who or what Navadvip is. And I would love to hear from you more about the abhinna, about the non-difference between Vrindavan and Navadvip Dham.
Well, Rupa Goswami says that some people call it Vaikuntha, the Paravyam, the spiritual world. Some people call it Goloka. But indeed, those who know the Tattva say it is Vrindavan. That's more or less what he says in the second verse. And so, if you, Jiva Goswami makes or explains, I believe in the Krishna Sandarbha, or maybe his commentary in Brahma Samhita or both, that the yantra for Goloka is configured like a square, right? In which there is the hexagon and the lotus and so forth. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. And so that says that square is called Svetadvip. Everything inside that square is called Svetadvip. But inside the square is the circle that is called Gokul. Another name for the Svetadvip, the square, is Goloka. So there's Goloka, and then there is Gokul. So Gokul is separated from Goloka within that square by the circle, that is the circumference around Gokul. And then he says that inside the square is Svetadvip, but inside the circle that is Gokul is Parasvetadvip. So another idea of Svetadvip. So outside the circle is Golok, and there's some measure of majesty there. You can find, for example, Radha Krishna Leela Swakiya, married. Inside the circle, it's Parakiya and the Braj Leela, as we know it from our Goswamis and so forth, right? And Vrindavan Das Thakur, in his Chaitanya Bhagavat, says, what does he say? He says, I'll look it up for you here. I probably got it right here. Let's see. What does he say? He says, Sweta Dvip Nam Nabo Dvip Gram Vede Prakashi Vo Pache. Sweta Dvip Nam Nabo Dvip Gram and Vede Prakashi Vo Pache. So, and this is exactly what has been done. He says that place called Svetadvip, that place known as Svetadvip, is Navadvip Gram, the village of Navadvip. And in Prakashiba, it will be revealed in the future that this And so it's questionable who wrote what first, the Chaitanya Bhagavad, I suppose you could say, or the Navadvipastakam. But he's saying in the future, this will be revealed. Now, he is equating Navadvip, arguably here, with the Para Sweta Dvip of Jiva Goswami's explanation. And as far as the future revelation of this, we need to look no further, if you will, than the design that Prabhupada came up with for the cover of his first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that he came to the West with. He made a cover and he had an artist depict it, in which there are many Vaikuntha planets, and in the center there was the lotus of Goloka, and there was Goloka, and in the center was the Gokul, and there was Radha and Krishna, right? And if you make sure you don't lose you here, and if you look over the shoulder of Radha and Krishna in his artistic depiction, you can see Mahaprabhu performing Sankirtan with his associates. And this has been spread all over the world. I had something to do with that, distributing that book, for example, all over the world. So we were living the prophecy of Vrindavan Das Thakur. This will be revealed to the world, that Navadvip, Ram, the village of Navadvip, this local village where I'm from, he's saying, right here along the bank of the Ganges. This is actually Sweta Dvip. And of course, when we will argue extended, the Para Sweta Dvip, in accordance with the Astakam of Rupa Goswami, that identifies Navadvip with Vrindavan. Now, so of course, the argument can obviously be extended by way of understanding who Krishna is, right? Who Mahaprabhu is. So Mahaprabhu is not an avatar of Krishna, he's Krishna himself. And how do we know that? Well, there are any number of reasons. One would be, well, Krishna has 4 qualities that no other manifestation of the Godhead has. He has Venu Madhurya, Rupa Madhurya, Lila Madhurya, and Prema Madhurya. So sweet flute, sweet leelas, sweet love, like Rasa Lila, sweet prem. It's not like the prem of Goloka, or of Vaikuntha, which is awe-filled and reverential. It's very sweet and charming and intimate and so forth. So Varaha is not interested in Prema Madhurya. Nrsingadev is not interested in, Lila Madhurya personally, right? This has nothing to do with them. This is only to do with Krishna. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was all concerned about these things. This is his total preoccupation. What he says about the flute of Krishna and hearing it, and thinking about it, what it does for him, and the pursuit of the Prema Madhurya, and his preoccupation with the Rupa Madhurya of Krishna. So he's an avatar. That'd be hard to deny, and he's completely absorbed in these 4 qualities that pertain only to Krishna. So, and of course, as Rupa Goswami says, Krishna Prema Pradayate, Mahabodhanaya. His character is that he's Mahabodhanaya. Krishna Prema Pradayate is leelas that he gives out Krishna Prem. Well, no other avatar is going to give Krishna Prem, right? So if he's giving Krishna Prem, well, he must be Krishna. If he's a manifestation of Krishna himself, an avatar of Krishna. So this way we equate him with the avatari, but curiously, he's in a very different position. Namo Mahabodhanaya, Krishna Prema Pradayate, right? His quality is that he gives his guna, that he's magnanimous. And Krishna Prema Pradaya, his Leela is that he gives out Krishna Prem. Mahabharanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate. Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya. His name is Krishna Chaitanya. Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gora Tise Namaha. Right? And his form is Tvisa Krishna. Right? It's golden. So this is a nice verse. It describes his Leela, his guna, his quality, his Leela, Rupa, Guna, Leela, so on. So a very nice verse, but this is Rupa Goswami reasoning like this, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu must be Krishna himself. Is he giving the Gyan Kanda? Karma Kanda? No. Gyan Kanda? No. Upasana Kanda? No. Keval Ananda Kanda. Ananda Kanda. It's only the path of bliss from beginning to end. So there's so many ways. If we look, deeply at the Bhagavatam, then we find the apex, the zenith of the Bhagavatam is there in the second to the last of the 5 chapters of the Bhagavatam covering the Rasa Leela. There, Krishna says, Napareham nirabhadya samdutam. He says to the gopis that I am not able. In fact, I just did a rendering of that. I'll read it to you. It took me quite some time to come up with the way I wanted, but I'm quite pleased with it. This is Krishna speaking. This is the genesis then of Gaur Leela and the Gaur Avatar in Srimad Bhagavatam. I've written this in relation to the Falsuti, or the 9th verse after the Astakam, telling us what the fruit of it is. So, Napareham nirabhadya samjam. Svasadu krityam vibudhayusapi bha. Ya mab hajan durjana geha srinkala samrishchatadva pradiyatu sadhuna. So Krishna says, I'm not able to return your seva in kind, even if I were to try, until the gods die. Your connection in union with me is immaculate. Loving me, you have severed the world knot of hearth and home, so difficult to untie. Thus may your saintliness be your recompense. And in parentheses, oh, if only I could become so sadhuna. So the verse ends with the word sadhuna, which means saintliness, and Krishna is telling the gopis that your own devotion, your own saintliness is beyond anything I have to reciprocate in kind for. You've given yourself to me so comprehensively. If I was to try until the gods die, I wouldn't be successful. But the word sadhana, Sanatana Goswami comments in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, where he cites this verse several times, but the last time he cites it, he says the word sadhana means saintliness, but it can also mean saint. So Krishna is saying that it's, or another alternative way of looking at it is Krishna saying, but maybe a saint could repay you. He's basically saying that, Krishna suggests to the gopis that the saintliness that they have is their own reward. There's nothing higher than this. However, in the verse, the word as a sadhana also refers to a saint. So he could be implying that if Krishna could himself become a sadhu, a saint, perhaps he could repay these milk maidens through his saintliness. And of course, this is exactly what he does, right? He adopts the guise of a sadhu and sings in Sankirtan of the gopis' virtues. Thus we find that hidden in the verses is his intention to openly praise the gopis' prem and that of Radha in particular, and given his nature to do so with the hidden hope that he might taste that prem himself. So anyway, the point is that we could go on and on. There are many arguments to be made for support the case that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna. Now, okay, but he sure doesn't look like Krishna. Krishna's dark, he's fair. Krishna's the supreme enjoyer, he's a sacrificer, right? He's taking sannyas and so forth. So therefore, it's hidden. You have to undergo, beneath the surface. And with the help of the Goswamis, this is what they did. They understood this Chaitanya is very extraordinary. We have to locate him somewhere on the scriptural map. And that's what they did. They located him as in terms of the avatar for the Kali Yuga. And then they also located him in terms of his ecstasy. And they said, this is Mahabhav. And they showed it. They located him there on the map of the scripture. He's Krishna in a particular way. Everything's turned around here, turned upside down. It's like I said before, like a reverse jacket. If it's gold on the inside and dark on the outside, but it has gold cuffs, and a gold collar. You turn it around, it's got a dark collar and dark cuffs and a gold body. This is Gaur Leela. If you look at Gaur Leela, you find yourself in Krishna Leela. You look deeply at Krishna Leela, you find yourself in Gaur Leela. Which one is first? Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says the fountain of Gaur Leela is sprouting, is springing and flowing in all directions of Krishna Leela. So he first the giver, Sridhar Maharaj used to say, then the gift. So if we're tasting the gift, we think, who gave me this? So while we're tasting the gift of Krishna Leela, then our mind goes to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who gave it to us, right? So given the fact that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, Gaur Leela is not something separate from Krishna Leela. It's the natural extension of Krishna Leela. Krishna's Prakat Leela, his manifest Leela, has its limitations in terms of what he manifested in the world to do, to taste rasa in his human-like setting, in human society, on location, so to speak. Wow. So an extra added, feature. But there, when he experienced the love of the gopis and Radha in particular in the Rasa Leela, after he separated from them and saw their ecstasy increase in the absence of him. When you're attached to something and you lose it, then how much you love it or care for it really comes out, right? So seeing that, then this was the point where he realized, there's something wrong here. I'm Rasaraj, the king of rasa, but there's something I don't know about rasa that she's experiencing. Am I really the king of rasa? I mean, this is a problem. So how to solve the problem? Krishna is very crafty, very, very expert. So he solves it by becoming Gaur, right? Manifesting as in a golden form, pursuing Radha's bhava. So the Gaur Leela is Krishna Leela. They're not separate. Therefore, Navadvipa must be Vrindavan. It can't be the outer circle of Golok. It can't be Vaikuntha. It is those things and more. It is Parasrita Dvip. That's what Rupa Goswami is saying in the second verse of his Navadvipastakam. Rupa Goswami, Prabhupada, Ki Jai.
Okay. Super explanation, Maharaj. Thank you.
Okay.
If you don't mind, I'd like to send Vaya Mohini and Madan Mohan one song by Vrindavan Das Thakur. I don't know how well known it is, but anyway, the first line is Nachire Nachire Nitai Gaura Dija Maniai. And I know that you'll love this song, and I'll send it via my friends if that's all right.
Very good. Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
So go ahead, Gurman.
Anything else?
There's one more question from Madhu Mangal Radhakanta, if you want to take it now, or should we leave it for next week?
Well, he's been a little sick, I saw, so let's try to answer it today.
Okay, so he's asking, what are some methods to keep us humble and to guard us against feelings of elitism directed towards non-devotees and other religious and even sanghas?
Well, the short answer is you have to look more carefully at yourself and be honest. Satama is another name, it means honest, truthful for devotees. You have to look at yourself. And then you have to look at the goal. You have to understand what is Krishna Prem. This is Krita Punja Punja. It blew the mind of Sukadeva Goswami. So what is your position in comparison to Sukadeva Goswami? And his mind was just blown by seeing the Krishna's friends and how they interacted with him in the Brahma Vimohan Leela. He said, what did they do to arrive at this position? It's just unfathomable. I mean, this is our goal. It's how do we get here? By grace. How will we get there? By grace, right? By grace. Well, we have to practice. Yes, what do we practice? Practice getting grace. Practice making effort to get grace. That's our path. Where's the room for pride? There's no room for pride whatsoever if you understand it properly. You just have to understand your own path and your own goal. And then you have to look at your own self honestly and say, where am I at? Or you may find somebody on another path that is far more detached than you. And you'll think, oh, they're better than me, but I'm more fortunate than them. I'm lucky because my trajectory is greater. If only I would apply myself as they've applied their self. As far as those who have lesser paths and aren't very well, developed, what's the point? Why be preoccupied with other people's paths? If you're some kind of big preacher, then you may have to know about other people's paths and preach. Focus on your own path, your own good from day to day, what you need to do to make progress in your own party bar, from your own guru. Focus, you got to be one-minded. And then there'll be no room for pride, because then you'll grow spiritually. When you grow spiritually, you grow in humility. The two go together. Spiritual growth and humility, they go together. They one complements the other. The more you grow spiritually, the more humble you become. The more humble you become, the more you grow spiritually. Mahaprabhu mandated that we should be more humble than a blade of grass. So, where's the room for being pride? As soon as you see pride coming, you got a problem. You got a problem. So, if you, how do you deal with the problem? I guess you got the problem. Then you're asking how to deal with it. Well, you have to reason, as I say, about the absurdity of such pride, so that you not be taken away by it, carried away by it, and let it get the best of you. I'll say this to you: you may be proud. It's possible to be. It's good to be a proud member of the Gaudiya Sampradaya. I'm proud that my guru has identified me as an authentic member of the Sampradaya. That's a healthy pride. But if you have a healthy and humble member of the Sampradaya, proud to be a humble member of the Sampradaya. But I can say this, that if you have the kind of pride, if you give in to entertain the pride the way you're speaking about it, then to that extent you're not on the path. That's not part of the path. Pratishta has been compared to the stool of pigs who eat stool. What must their stool be like? Not desirable. So there's no room for that on the path. No room. So, all right, nice to talk with all of you, and hope to be with you again next week. Gaur Premanande.
Haribo, Shri Guru Maharaj ki jai. So one quick thing again about the Tattva Vivek series. We have Shyam Sundar's giving a class this Thursday. He's continuing his 24 Guru series, and it's going to be Ether this time. Should be interesting. So hope you guys can log in. See you next